What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a brand new edition of Holding Court here on the First State Hoops Report YouTube channel. I am, of course, First State Hoops Report founding editor and Holding Court host Chris Stevens. Hopefully, you all are doing well out there. Told you guys we weren't finished with Holding Court, even though the high school basketball season is over now. Well, actually, it officially ended yesterday with the Blue Gold game, and people were asking, Chris, why weren't you at the Blue Gold game? Yeah, I was covering the MEAC tournament for HBCUsports.com, so I did not get a chance to make it down to Smyrna to catch the Blue Gold games. But from what I was able to see through the highlights, and shouts out to the folks and the content creators there who are putting together highlight reels as we speak, it looked like a pretty good time. So congratulations to those seniors who got to play one last high school basketball game before they move on with the rest of their lives. We'll probably talk a little bit about certain things and situations that have happened that, kind of are heartbreaking a little later on in the show, probably because the show's not going to be very long, honestly, because two things I want to talk about. One, All-State tomorrow. Yes, as you're watching this, it's Sunday, and the All-State ballots will be tabulated, and Delaware Sports Writers and Broadcast Association will release the All-State teams Monday afternoon. So, as I've said before in the past, I was checking my phone real quick. As I've said before in the past, the formula is very simple. The sports writers of the Delaware and Broadcasters Association of the DSBA, we all meet for lunch. Shout out to Chuck DeVraney, who takes us to Mezzanot every year, and they have great food, and I'm very much looking forward to that lunch tomorrow. We meet. We go over our votes, and then we look at the ballots that the coaches have submitted as well, because it's not just the DSBA voting, it's the coaches who vote as well. So when people ask, how do you guys come up with All-State, there's your answer. And we ask coaches all the time, because there are some coaches who don't even put in words for their players, their own players. And some coaches don't even fill out a ballot at all. So that takes away one more opportunity for a player to be considered All-State, because one coach didn't feel like filling out a ballot, or one coach didn't, put in for their own player. So, I know educators are busy people. I get it. I've talked all day long about how, the state of Delaware could really give a what about the general, state of education here in Delaware, which is why I found it very interesting that the governor, soon to be mayor of Wilmington, could get us kicked off of press row so he could have a seat. And of course he only came to see so when Salesiana was playing. So no disrespect to my friends at Sal's. I love Sal's, but I just found it very weird that the only time the governor shows up to basketball all year long is for a private school, and that was just very weird to me. Like, maybe it's somebody else. Maybe that makes sense. But there's still public schools here in the state of Delaware who very much need help. We just had 3 public schools, have referendums pass. Another one, I think it was Smyrna's, whose referendum was rejected. And I found that very surprising. But yes, we have public schools out here, begging for referendums and money from the people in the community, to pitch in and help with the schools, and some don't even want to do that. So, but yeah. But back to my point. I know educators are busy. The coaches, they teach as well. So I know they got to grade. I know they got to put together these lesson plans, parent-teacher conferences, all of that stuff. We beg y'all all the time, and I'm not going to stop begging. Please help us help y'all. Put the stats on a website for sports. Even though I was told by Eileen Volts, who took a year off from coaching a Wilmington Charter girls basketball. It's always good to talk to Dr. Volts, Coach Volts. That it's actually the AD's responsibility to put the scores in. But me and G. Johnson talk about this all the time. There are students out there who may not be athletes, but they love statistics and they love sports. Make it easy. Have one of those kids, do like an internship in your office, or make it for like a grade or something, for crying out loud. Just have them put all the stuff in so we can have this information when we vote for All-State. And I can, when I do my honor roll weekly stuff, I know which kids are showing out, and I can acknowledge them. It's very simple. Just grab one of these kids that, love sports, may want to have a managerial role or a personnel role later on in sports, or want to coach, want to be an AD, and just say, hey, this is how you get started. Put these stats in for me. That's simple. And that makes our job as sports writers and broadcasters a whole lot easier. Trust me. So that is the all-state, secret sauce, if you will. And I put a poll out on Instagram a few weeks ago before the state tournament started. Who were your players of the year? And I didn't get to post those results because Instagram was acting screwy, and I was really irritated by that, so I just totally forgot about it. But I remember that most of the girls' votes from the people, and this is from the people, this is not from DSBA, this is not from the coaches, this is from the folks who follow us on Instagram. So it's a very unscientific, unofficial poll. So it's just like me asking, who do you guys think player of the year? It's just people out there. And Gigi was the runaway winner. And I'm not surprised because she's had the best year of anybody in the state, with probably the exception of Aiden Tobiasen and Darrell Little on the boys' side. And that is going to be a very interesting vote, let me tell you right now. Because when you look at the totality, when you look at the body of work of both Darrell and Aiden, it's kind of like, it's a push. I mean, granted, Darrell's going to he has the opportunity to say he brought the first state championship in the history of Dover High School to Dover High School, which is crazy when you think about it, because Dover has the most state tournament appearances of any team in the state. They made about 53 of them things. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. When you think about it, because the state tournament's been around since 1967. Dover's been a part of it just about every year except for like the first 3 or 4. I know there's been some years in between where they didn't make it, but mostly Dover's in the state tournament every year. So maybe 53 is overselling it. So I'll say 40, 48, 47, 48-ish, somewhere thereabouts. Close to 50 state tournament appearances, and they had never won a state championship until last Saturday. And Darrell Little Jr. was the alpha on the team. Well, you can make the argument that Denham Perkins was the alpha too, so they're co-alphas. But they clearly were the best players on the floor Saturday night. They scored 47 to Dover's 56 points. But Darrell himself, is a certified scoring machine. And I'm going to go ahead and say this because I'll talk about the Delaware State MEAC championship game in a minute. But I just want to say that, could you imagine Darrell in the backcourt next year with Dean Shepard, with Daywilk Tavares and Jevin Muniz? That would be unstoppable, bro. I mean, and also, because if you don't know, John Clemens that went to Caravel, who also called me Mr. Stevens during an interview during his senior year, and made me feel super old. Thanks, John. He is going to Delaware State next year. So that Hornet team is going to be very good. Imagine if Darrell and Denham go on board. That would be fun. That would really be a first state team, and I'd be down there every Saturday as a Delaware State alum and as a journalist watching them play. But yeah, Aiden had a phenomenal year as well. St. Elizabeth was number 1 until they weren't. And of course, that credit goes to Sal's, because Sal's always steps it up when they get to the Bob, and this past weekend was no different. So yeah, Aiden had a phenomenal year. He's going to Temple. He scores, he rebounds, he defends. He's good. He's going to be a really good player at Temple, I feel like. We talk about kids that commit to D1 programs, and we worry about their prospects later on down the line. I don't think we're going to have to have that problem with Aiden. I think Aiden's going to go there and play early and play well. So that's going to be an interesting conversation when we meet tomorrow, between Darrell and Aiden for Boys Player of the Year, because there's respect due to everyone else in the state of Delaware on the boys' side, because there were some talented kids on the boys' side this year. You had Kareem Thomas, you had Justin Hines, the aforementioned Denham Perkins, JT Wright, for crying out loud, Aiden's own teammate. But it's a 2-player race between Darrell Little and Aiden Tobiasen for Boys Player of the Year, I feel like. It's going to be interesting when we have that conversation tomorrow, but, that's why we vote. And that's why we ask coaches to put these ballots in, because, you don't want just 10 to 12 journalists picking an award. That's why, we ask the coaches, to fill out a ballot so we can, have some depth and some parity and some diversity of thought and just balance this thing on out because it makes more sense that way. But yeah, very much looking forward to the All-State luncheon tomorrow, and then I don't know what time in the afternoon, but it's usually we usually are asked to not release this All-State teams at a certain time, so every outlet and every organization, every journalist can put it out at the same time. So yeah, whatever time that is, you'll probably see them all popping up from myself at First State Hoops Report. You'll see them from Delaware Live 302 Sports, the News Journal, WDEL, Beta Bay News. I always forget it's not Delaware State News because when I interned under Andy Walter, shout out to Andy Walter, who still speaks every time he sees me. Good guy. When I interned at that newspaper back in 2005, yes, I've been around a long time. It was the Delaware State News. So I forget now that it's Beta Bay News. But yeah, all the outlets will be releasing the All-State teams all at the same time. So no one can say they have the jump or the scoop or anything, even though that's, it's kind of important in our field to, be first. I mean, but you want to be accurate more than anything else. So yeah, we'll all put All-State teams out at the same time. So that's usually how it goes. So yes, looking forward to revealing the 30 players on the boys and girls side who earned All-State honors, because if you don't know, there's 5 on first team, 5 on second team, 5 on third team, and 15 honorable mention. And I want people to understand this. And I mean, this is so much. I mean, it's for the players, but it's also for the people who, have a little bit more vested interest than they probably should in this process. Is that there are literally 1,000 players playing high school varsity basketball in the state of Delaware. When you think about it, because there's 55 high school teams to each side, boys and girls, and 10 or 12 make varsity. So we're talking about, probably 600 kids. So, 600 kids on girls, 600 kids on guys. So you put those together, it's about 1,200 kids. And only 30 can be, and only 60 can be All-State, boys and girls. 30 girls, 30 boys. And it's not a knock on your talent. It's not a knock on your heart. It's not a knock on your team. It's just that some players, established a little more, favor, well, not favor, but, just were better. And I think that's something we miss sight of, and I mean, and I'm not one of these people that's going to start, moaning and groaning about participation trophies, because too many people do that as is. I mean, y'all complain about that all day long, and I'm still not seeing where the participation trophies really come in, but whatever. But I think it's just important to note that some people are just better at things than other people. That's life. Like, I can tell you a story about a journalist friend of mine from my days in Maryland. And I thought I was doing work because I was the only sports writer, photographer, editor at my newspaper. Like, I literally was busting my butt week in and week out. Didn't work for that publisher because he was a jerk, but that's another story. That's a story for my journalism memoir. But the dude at the competing paper, even though we didn't even consider each other competition, we thought it was a joke, honestly, that they were trying to pit us against each other. But this dude could write a lead sentence and, just make you care about a feature better than some of the people that were working at Sports Illustrated, that were working at, ESPN, New York Times, any big newspaper you want to name. And I was like, why can't I do this part of it as good as he does? Like, I'm like, people read my stuff and say, yo, your stuff is good. And I appreciate that. But I mean, there are journalists out there that are better than me. Those are the facts. Some people are just better at other things than other people. Doesn't make you any less of a human being. It just means that person is just supremely talented. And that goes for basketball as well. There are some great basketball players in the state of Delaware. It doesn't mean that you're not good. It's just that I mean, for crying out loud, Gigi Banks and Taylor Brown are probably going to get NIL offers. I mean, they're just great basketball players. They have charisma. They have swagger. I mean, they're them. They're. Can I say they're hers? I mean, they're hers. They're the she's. You get what I'm saying. But I mean, it's just that there are some kids in basketball in Delaware that are better than others. That doesn't mean you're bad. That doesn't mean you're terrible. It just means that those kids are better. That's really what it boils down to. So, yeah, All-State comes out tomorrow. Well, I mean, it's Sunday as I'm recording this, but yeah, All-State will be out on Monday afternoon. Very much looking forward to sharing that with you guys. And, if the situation calls for it, I may do I don't know if I can do a live because HBCU Sports, we usually do a live show on Monday night. So maybe I'll do one Tuesday afternoon. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Or maybe I'll do a live before I go live for my job. Work never stops, people. Work never stops. Speaking of, I was covering the MEAC tournament for HBCU Sports, and Delaware State men's made it all the way to the championship game and lost by 3 points to Howard University. That's the Delaware State alum coming out. But very much excited for the direction of the program because when Stan Waterman was hired at Delaware State, a few alums reached out to me, and because they knew I covered high school basketball in Delaware, and Stan Waterman has literally known my family his entire life. He literally knew me when my mom brought me home from the hospital. Not gonna say how long ago that was to age either one of us, but Stan knows. But everyone was like, so, is he the goods? Is he as great as everyone says he is? I said, trust me, give him time. And lo and behold, they just made the MEAC championship game in his third year. And the third year is always an important year in a college basketball coach's cycle because you need at least 4 years of a recruiting class to be able to say what a coach is and what a coach isn't, what a program is and what a program isn't. And honestly, if we're being honest, this is only Stan's second year with the kids that I would say that he would want. Or maybe, because Jevin Muniz is a sophomore. That would be Stan's first high profile recruit. And Dewo Tavares, who played at forget where the kid played. I know it was one of the programs in Pennsylvania. But he was really good. And he was he was the MEAC Rookie of the Year this year. Made MEAC All Third Team. Probably should have been second team, being honest with you, because there weren't that many players in the MEAC better than Dewo Tavares this year. And two were on his own team. Of course, there's Jevin and Martez Robinson, who I know probably feels kind of down in the dumps today. That he didn't get to the NCAA tournament, but I want that young man to know that he's going to be thought of as one of the people that helped turn this program around because he played great for 4 years. And coming in, filling in what Coach Waterman wanted, he scored 1,000 career points this year. We're going to bring when Delaware State has like its Hall of Fame stuff and all of that, Martez Robinson is certainly going to be on the list in the future. Like, great young man, great ball player. Kudos to him for a great 4 years. But getting back to my point, college coaches need 3 or 4 years to cycle out the recruits from the previous regime and start bringing in their kids. And people forget. Well, they don't forget. But people just didn't recognize that Stan's first year, they were 2-25. They lost to Salisbury. And Salisbury is a Division III. And people were like, well, I know, it's his first year, but I never thought it wasn't going to happen because crying out loud, it's Stan Waterman. I'm gonna probably get some flack for saying this, but he's the greatest basketball coach, high school or college, that Delaware has ever produced. Bottom line, 571 wins at Sanford over 30 years, 8 state championships. He always says it, success sells itself. And that first year was bad, but it was like, okay, it was the kids from the Skeeters regime. What do you want from them? But then he started bringing in his kind of guys. They got better last year. They gave North Carolina Central a run in the quarterfinals, but it was just up to them, to improve this year, and they did. 15-18 doesn't look like an improvement, but compared to 2-25, it's worlds away, and it's in the right direction. And the only thing that they just ran out of gas yesterday because when you think about it, the way the MEAC and SWAC tournaments are set up, it's ridiculous. Every college tournament, college conference tournament is dumb because you got teams playing 4 games and 4 nights and all of that stuff. Like, you really need to start working out deals with these arenas and these hotels where these kids can get at least a day off or at least a good 16 hours off. Because Delaware State played their semifinal game on a Friday night, didn't get off the court till 10:45. They were back on the court 1 p.m. Saturday the next day. That's not enough time to sleep. That's not enough time to game plan. That's not enough time for a walkthrough. That is what? Barely 14 hours? No, let me see. Yeah, it's barely 14 hours. Barely between 14 hours between just finishing a very hard game against a really good North Carolina Central team, mind you, and hitting the court at 1 p.m. against the defending MEAC champions. But they came close. They had the lead. They were up 55-49. Jevin went on a nice little run by himself. They were down by 3. And then, of course, he went on a nice little run, and then they went up 6. And I was like, oh, wow, is this really about to happen? But Howard just had a little bit more left in the tank. DSU had a couple looks to tie, couldn't get them. Howard made their free throws at the end, and that's how they won it. But for the future of Delaware State basketball, I feel like it's bright for men and women. And this is my personal modest plea to the Delaware State brass, AD Alicia Shields-Gadsden, Associate AD Kyle Adams. This is my plea to you guys. Take the interim tag off of Jasmine Turner's name. She deserves to be the full-time head coach. Considering what that program went through with the previous head coach and the fact that they played that much better this year, and it felt like, just watching them, it just felt like the vibes were better. You can't win championships off of vibes, but you definitely need people liking each other, to help. And when your coaches like each other, when your players like your coaches, when your coaches like your players, things go a lot better. So I think Jazz Turner and Sherelle Dennis have done a phenomenal job, and Jazz deserves to be the full-time head coach. That is my personal opinion. And just give her a chance with a recruiting class. Because, you can see what they've done with, shouts out to Janiah Perkins-Jackson. I remember her when she played the Haas, and then she moved to California and played JUCO and Division II out there, and came back home to walk on and make an all-MEAC team. That is phenomenal. And that is a study in perseverance for any kid who feels like, the road is too tough. The road is too hard. I don't think I'm going to make it. Just look at what Janiah Perkins-Jackson did. She proved that if you stick to it, if you believe in yourself and you work hard enough, the results will come. And a lot of that has to do with, Coach Dennis, who was a point guard at Christiana and Lincoln. So she knows the game. Coach Turner was a Division II point guard, coached across all levels of college basketball before becoming an assistant under the previous coach and now being the interim head coach. These women know ball, man. And people are going to look at DSU and say, oh, wow, 8-20. Yeah. But considering how bad Shakes that program was under the previous head coach, who, from what I heard, wasn't even showing up to practices last year, that's a huge step forward. And they beat the University of Delaware. That's always a win. So good on Coach Turner and Coach Dennis and that entire staff and those players who played their hearts out all year long. So, yes, I think Jazz Turner deserves to be the full-time head coach at Delaware State University. I'm sure AD Gadsden and Adams are working on it. But that's just my personal opinion and modest plea. But, yeah, really good year for Delaware State basketball. College basketball in the state as well is really healthy. The Goldie Beacom women, they really weren't picked very high, but they made it to the CACC semifinals. And that's just a tribute to Beth Ann Burke's coaching. And they only lose a couple of players. They return a lot. And imagine what they could get, probably from like the transfer portal or even from the JUCO level. That's a good start for that Goldie Beacom. And the Goldie Beacom men had a really good year. They returned a few kids as well. Shouts out to Willem U. They had a really good year on the boys' side. On the men's side, the women's side. Hopefully they find a coach that, they can work with and they'll rebuild that program. It's interesting because I had the honor of catching up with Lisa Sullivan at the AI girls quarterfinal matchup, and I asked her, I was like, Coach, the game misses you. Why aren't you coaching at Willem U, or why aren't you coaching on a high school level? And she told me it was for personal reasons, and she of course, some swear, to keep people's business private. And I understand completely. But Coach Sullivan is just one of those people that I feel like, with the right program. She took a Mount Pleasant boys program that was not very good for a long time. Because I can tell you the last time Mount Pleasant made the state tournament before Coach Sullivan got there, because I was a senior at Howard. Because Mount Pleasant was in Flight B the same time we were in Flight B. So, and that was 1999. But yeah, once she got there, they started making state tournaments. They started winning conference championships. They started winning, They started making it to the Final Four. A Mount Pleasant team hadn't made it to the Final Four before Lisa Sullivan since 1967. No, wait, 1974. I'm sorry. I had the numbers in front of me. I don't know what I was saying. They won the state. They won the first state championship in 1967. Their last Final Four appearance before Lisa got there was 1974. But yeah, Coach Sullivan, great person. It was good to catch up with her. But yeah, that women's team needs to have a smash of a hire. Like, I don't know what you can get at the Division II level, but you'll probably need you can either go two directions. You can either get a former Division I coach or a young high school successful or college assistant ready to mold and shape a program in their image. That's what the Wilmington U women's basketball team needs, in my opinion. And it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But yeah, this show is a little longer than I expected. I only expected to be talking about 15 minutes, but when you're on a roll, you're on a roll. But gotta talk about an unfortunate circumstance that happened over the weekend. We lost another young athlete this weekend. Damian Ross, who of course played football and basketball at Howard, passed away over the weekend. And as a Howard alum and a guy who always was down there, covering stuff for First Day Hoops Report, got to know Dame fairly well. Really nice young man, despite what transpired in Florida, and I'll say more about that in a minute. But this is the second straight off season of sorts that we've lost, a young man, that played basketball and that we know well. And us as journalists and content creators, we're around you kids a lot. And we care about y'all. We really do. We want y'all to succeed. We want y'all to be happy, healthy human beings. Basketball, we always gonna, watch out for y'all. But in the spectrum of life, we hope that you all do well. We hope you all grow up, become productive citizens of society, whatever it is, whatever profession you want to do. If you want to coach, if you want to, be a teacher, a doctor, whatever, that you have a family, that you see this life thing through, all the way through. And it hurts every time we hear about a young person passing away, because I think in our age group, those of us who are adults, we kind of forget that aging is a privilege, even though we've lost people fairly young, and I can't imagine how, the Howard family feels, how, the people that competed against Dame feel, but this hurts, man. This hurts because, like it did with Corey Mumford last year, because, he was an innocent bystander, for crying out loud. Didn't even have nothing to do with him. And feels like the same thing has happened with Dame. And, again, we care about y'all, man, and it hurts. It hurts when we lose kids young, because, that's a life that we'll never know what could have been. And the woulda, coulda, shouldas will mess you up every time. They do. And, it just really, it's hard, man. Like, you try to keep a straight face when you do these things, because you hate talk. Especially me, because I hate talking about death as is, because it's always a touchy subject for me. But I can't imagine how it is for 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids to lose somebody that young. And it happens a lot today, whether it's through accidents or, different situations, mental health challenges and all of that. That's why I don't, feel like, I'm not one of these old people, get off my lawn folks, like, what's wrong with these kids today? These kids are dealing with a lot. And I think if we realized that we dealt with a lot as youngins, then we would give these kids a lot more grace. And I hope, and that brings me to the point about how people really villainized that young man and his father about what happened in Florida, and folks that will never take accountability for that. Yeah, I ain't forgot. I have not forgotten. And it's still, it still really ticks me off. And it's just very, 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 very hard to talk about, talking about somebody 17, 18 years old who had their whole life ahead of them and now will never know. And that, their parent, because parents say it all the time. Parents say, I never want my kids to go before me. And now this is the second time in about a year that I mean, it happens, not just the basketball players. I mean, it just happens to normal kids, but you know, it probably hurts for these parents, and it hurts for the kids who went to school with them. And it's just very, very difficult, to talk about. But just wanted to, give my condolences to Dame's family, his teammates, the Howard family. It's hard, man. I mean, it's just like, yeah, let me get off of here before I start, losing my ish. But rest in peace, Fly High Dame, man. We're gonna miss you. You know, kids, teammates, family, friends of his, stay strong. Everybody's, supporting you whatever way we can. It's just hard, man. Whew. That's gonna do it for this edition of Holding Court. Greatly appreciate y'all for watching. As always, all the contact information will be in the description below. Once again, we're gonna do shows every week. I'm hopeful to have a special guest on, Coach Rachel Naughton for for the HBCU Classic. That's gonna be going down at the Fieldhouse in May. I'm gonna try to get her on next week or in the coming weeks. But then again, we'll have different episodes of Holding Court with other guests as well. So this ain't the end. I mean, but yeah, let me get off of here before I start. I need to go take a walk anyway. So thank y'all for watching as always. And until the next time we talk to each other or see each other in these gyms, y'all take care of yourselves and each other.